Hey, everybody. Welcome to our Wednesday night training call. And as announced and expected, he did show up. We were just talking about how things happen in the world today where you never know until the last minute if everybody's going to show. But our special guest, Mr. Eddie Stone. Eddie, welcome.
Hey, Alan, thank you so much. What a privilege to be with you and the team here at the start of a new year, like a fresh fallen snow. It's just beautiful, right? Out, everything remains possible. All the pages are blank, and we can fill them in as we please.
Absolutely. And with what our company's done and many of the leaders on our teams and many of the people out there over the past 2 years, this pandemic has really not slowed us down at all, but we've continued to have. And I wanted you to touch base on that before we go into the goal setting. Another record year, back-to-back record years in during this pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of overwhelmed by it, frankly, and just looking at these sort of Herculean levels of growth people have had. It's an organization, right? But it's made up of all these individual organizations and leaders. And to see what's happened for people, the number of people that have seen record income growth, record growth in the size of their organization, and not that it was overnight, right? It's one of those overnight stories that was years in the making. And so it's
Absolutely.
just great to see people see the fruits of their labor in that way. Not that they've crossed a finish line. I think most of them will continue to extend the finish line, right? One of those types of situations. But for us as a company, we look at that and, remains in the back of our mind this sort of constant effort to reach out and touch people. We've been really clear about this million family connection, which we grow ever closer to, all the time. And we do that. Our business has multiple sides to it, right? Some of it is just the relationships and the social network that winds up being created with people. And it's really a family
It
atmosphere
really is.
largely.
Yeah.
The way that products can impact and change people's lives. I go through and read all those shopper approved reviews. I've been paying attention to the things on your testimonial Facebook page, and it's
Yeah.
really so motivating, right? To see that you make these efforts, you contact people, you don't always know what's going to happen, and all of a sudden somebody's telling a story about somebody's life that's changed, and then that reminds me of stories of people that's lives have changed, but it's not the change that it's what didn't happen, right? They didn't get the diagnosis, they didn't go to the hospital, they didn't have this or that, right? And so
Right.
their good health provided some level of a shield, and so then you see the income success story. So it's just it's great to see, and no reason in looking at all the trend lines that we
Yeah.
won't do it again this year, right?
No, you're exactly right. And the people that have had great success and just continue to goal set and set specific goals. And as you said, I don't think anybody that I've spoken to anyway is comfortable yet. I don't think anybody's ready to put down the gauntlet and say, okay, I'm done. Everybody is continuing to work towards bigger and better things. And with World Central Kitchen, I know that's a great charity that we've teamed up with, and just seeing what they're doing out there in the world. Seeing, as you said, the testimonies that we're making a difference in people's lives, not just physically but mentally, and just being there for people and creating a community where people can come together during these crazy times, and then to be able to support an organization like World Central Kitchen and to see how, when the storms hit in Kentucky, I was watching the Weather Channel that morning, Saturday morning, and they said World Central Kitchen. They were talking about all the people that are there, and said World Central. They even mentioned on what the Weather Channel that World Central Kitchen was here first thing this morning, setting up. They're already feeding breakfast. And
Yeah.
that's just amazing to be able to be part of, to be associated with an organization like that, and kudos to the company. But that just speaks volumes for not only what you and your family and your team and what the company brings forth, but it speaks to the heart of what everybody, I think, everybody with our company feels the same way.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up, because for me, I'm so inspired when I look at this stuff, right? And unfortunately, we live in a world where there's almost a crisis of the hour, right, on a global
Yeah.
scale. And everywhere I look that there's a significant issue going on, there they are, right?
Yeah.
And they've gotten up in the middle of the night and they're out there in the freezing cold, or I mean, whatever it happens to be. And so that inspires me to do more, be a better person, right? Serve more people, because it isn't just that you give money, it's the time and the
Exactly.
energy that's spent on it as well. And so I have to say, I'm not relaxed. I mean, my goals are very firm and they remain quite large, but I look at myself and say, wow, you can't sleep, man, when you think about what you can do to help an organization like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, when we talk about goal setting, which is what we're here to talk about, is goal setting for 2022. You know, we had a call earlier today, a leadership advisory call, and you were talking about, you know, the goals and what the plans are and what our future looks like. And you know, a lot of people in this business, even if you're brand new, that brand new person who's just joined us, whether you've joined us this week or this month, you know, we're excited to have you on board too, because our goals can only be achieved by helping and bringing on new people and helping the new people achieve what they're looking for. And the big question that I get asked is, you know, Alan, when you look at this year, when you look at 2022, and I was just talking to one of our leaders earlier, just before this call, and they said, this is one of the things that I struggle with. How do I set a specific goal for me and my team? And so I'd love for you to just jump in and elaborate on that.
Yeah, and number one, I like your the way you position it, SMART goals, right?
Yeah.
Starting with specifics. And so I'm going to come back and try to fill this in with some details. But from an overview standpoint, there's some critical tactical approaches to goals here that Alan's outlined. And the first one is being specific. If it's not defined, it really will be difficult to ever achieve.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons for that, but one of the subtle reasons is it's your own subconscious and conscious sort of recognize you're not really committed because you're not putting a firm flag in the plant in the ground, so to speak, right? You're not really
Yeah.
staking yourself and saying, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to make this happen, right? And so you've got to be able to think in terms of specifics, and then we'll come back and talk about what that looks like. But it also has to be measurable. If it's nebulous, right? You know what life is like, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's just too much chaos and too many things that can happen, and sort of the winds of life so easily blow you off course. And if you don't know where you're headed, you can't get there. I mean, literally, right? If I'm going from point A to point B in my head, but B's not defined, how do you arrive, right? How do you know if you're partway there or whatever it turns out to be? You talk about accountability, that's your A in SMART. To me, having an accountability partner is crucial, really, in all things of this nature. If you're not able for that to be a specific person, the public can be your accountability partner. You can post, do, and say things out loud, take ownership of them that, your ego, your own vanity will probably drive you towards them, right? Because you don't want to have this public failure. And I'm not trying to talk about embarrassing yourself. And then relevant, I could set a goal to dunk a basketball. I mean, I could. And I could go out there and I could do all kinds of exercises. I could buy the best sneakers, and I could buy the best exercise equipment. But the truth of the matter is, at this point, 58 years of age, it's really unlikely that that's going to occur. I might get in a little bit better shape, but it's not necessarily relevant to these life goals and context of who and what I am. And so I want people to recognize that. You also have to take measure of where you're starting.
Yeah.
If I all of a sudden want to be an astrophysicist and I've not done any of that work, is that really a relevant issue? That's just about being honest with yourself. And then finally, there's no reason to go it alone. Success will come because you use the tools that are available. And you, particularly in your leadership group, you guys help provide those tools. encompassing some of the tools we make as a company. So these are really the tactical ways to approach it.
Yeah. And, on the specifics, for example, talking about a specific goal, I think a lot of times people are afraid to put that specific goal out there because they're afraid they're not going to hit it. And that's why, you hear people say, well, set a big, audacious, scary goal, because in order to grow, we have to get out of our comfort zone. And I kind of pattern it to look. We're about to do a tour. We're about to do a southern winter tour, and we're going to be doing several events across the country. Well, I'm leaving North Carolina next week on the 12th, and I'm headed down to Georgia. And then I've got, when you're talking about being specific and what's relevant in the tools, I've got it mapped out. I've had to look at it and see where I'm going to go and how far I'm going to drive each day in the motorhome and where I'm going to stay and book reservations. And you got to plan in advance. And then I got to take it one step at a time. And of course, again, like you said, use the tools. Today, earlier on the call, I went and I was looking, I pull a Jeep behind the motorhome and the tires on the back, I just wasn't happy with them. I said, I'm not going to drive from here to Yuma, Arizona, dragging a Jeep that might have a flat tire. So I went over there and I said, I need 2 new tires on the back because I need to make sure the tools that I had were capable of getting me where I wanted to go and that I was going to use the tools. New Mexico, when I was talking about them, she said, we could get a foot of snow. You never know. I don't think we will while you're out there, but where we are could happen. I said, well, if I have to leave the motorhome, I've got the other tool, my Jeep 4x4. I'll drive it up. We'll be there for the event, And so you're right. I mean, is setting that specific goal and then setting the steps along the way, just to be able to make it. And specifically what you're looking to accomplish, once you visualize that, and I think that's where people struggle is, okay, so, and I was talking earlier, I said, so it's really one of the good things I love about our company is not only the tools, but the systems that we have in place and you're talking about being measurable. If you can't measure it, you can't measure your progress, then you can't manage it.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah.
And so when I was talking earlier, I said, well, let's just look at it this way. If you wanted to be a star executive, if that's your goal for this year, star executive. So what do you have to do that? Well, it's with our system, it's really simple. You need 2 national directors and a regional director. That's what you need in 3 different legs. And so if you have one that you feel will get you there, then you need to be focused on, I need to go out and invite, share, follow up. And I think the unknown is what scares people a lot of times because we recruit people and we say this is the one that's going to be that next national director for me to get to star executive if that's my goal. And and one of the things that I love about Ryan's book, and you can touch on that, is we can want it for them, but we can't do it for them.
No, you can't. So I like what you've done there because you basically said this is the big thing I want, but you backed it up to a bite-sized piece, or at least more understandable or digestible. So I work with a 1-3-5 plan. That's sort of internally, that's what drives me, and that really only means that where I want to be with something in 1 year, 3 years, and 5. And I tend to think of 5 as sort of of a specific set of goals. That's the end point or the full realization of that goal. Okay. And so in order for me to get to the 5-year thing, which is the big one, I gotta back it up a little bit and say, well, where will I need to be at 4 and 3? But specifically here, I just try to keep the points tighter. And so 1, 3, and 5. And so I always think of year 1 as refining my process, right? I'm more concerned coming out of the gate. In this case, I call it year 1, with what are the activities or the processes that I need to be have in place, refining, becoming master of, develop mastery of, in order to make sure that in year 3, I'm well on my way on my journey to that 5-year goal. And that becomes relevant to where I'm at in life. If I'm brand new to Touchstone and I want to be an ambassador, right? I come into this thing right now. I've been successful in life, right? I'm gonna make this happen, right? I know what's going on. I look at this conversation, but ambassador, right? That's where I want to be. Unless there's unusual circumstances, that's not happening overnight, right?
That's
That's
right.
just not how this thing works. It takes time. It's kind of like when you start grade school. If you've got your eye on a PhD, you probably don't even know what that is at that point in life, right? That doesn't happen overnight unless you're Doogie Howser or whatever it was in TV day when the kid was really smart or whatever that happens to be. And so just as you've described, I think it's really critical to say, okay, let me back up from there and see how I get there. If I said to myself, I want to be an accomplishment in the compensation plan, just like you've done. And if you can't do it on your own, you get with an experienced member of your upline team and have them help you break it down. Easy enough. If you can't find one of them, call support and say, support, I want to be a director. How do I do that? Right? They're schooled on these types of things, but maybe it's not inside the comp plan. Maybe what you have in mind is a set of dollar figures.
Right.
Okay. Talk to a member of the team and say, about what percentage will I earn of my volume at this level or that level, so you can begin to understand what needs to happen for you to get there. Maybe you've got something on a personal level that you've got to accomplish financially. You know what the dollar figure is. You're just not quite sure how to make this perform for you in that way, yield those dollars. So you start with what's hanging out there, that big audacious goal, the thing that might drive you. And I'm going to add a pro tip to that in just a second. And then you back up. Okay, here are the steps I need to follow to get there. If you just say to yourself every day when you wake up, I want to make $5,000, very difficult, because you've not given your brain, your conscious, your subconscious any opportunity to really create a roadmap to accomplish that. Right. And while I do believe the brain and body can perform miracles, you're asking a lot, right? Mm-hmm. So here's something else I try to get people to think about. You want to make X amount of money, or X achievement in the compensation plan, or a place at the beach, right? Whatever this thing is, you got to really ask yourself, how important is it to you? Because all of these things in the unintentional aspect of life, all of life throws chaos at you, unexpected winds of change, whatever it happens to be, so that it's just not a straight path that you'll be able to follow. That would be lovely if it was just a straight path all the time and everything around you in life cheered you on. But unfortunately, that's just not what happens, right? There are people that had all kinds of goals a couple years ago that a global pandemic, they couldn't do anything about, nor could their neighbors or anybody else, right? It's disruptive quality.
That's right.
Couldn't do anything about that. So you've got to be able to say to yourself, how important is it to you? Because that's what gives you the strength to forge on, even when distractions occur. And I have this rule of thumb. If I put something down on a paper, I ask myself how important it is, and I scale it. Scale of 1 to 10, Eddie. How important is it to you? And I've done this enough with myself. I'm honest about it. If I put something down, and I usually try to put 2 or 3 things down so I can make a comparison, and I scale it from 1 to 10, and it's less than an 8, I take it off the list, because it's not going to happen. Psychologically, there's plenty of research out there to prove that if we can't say we're 8 out of 10 on something, it's not strong enough to push past the chaos of life.
Right. Because we're going to run into difficulties. We're going to run into obstacles. You know, I tell people all the time, it's amazing. The direct sales business is truly a simple business.
You bet.
But it's not easy. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it. But it's not. But it's the simplicity of it. And as you said, when you set your systems in place, your goals, and you break them down to bite-sized pieces, and you were talking earlier about following your activity to achieve that. And when you run into those roadblocks, as you said, why are you doing this? What is your goal? We were talking earlier today, and I've got a friend who's a school teacher. And she's got a real desire to create income because she's now a single mom with 2 kids, and she's having to work 3 jobs. And so her motivation is there because she doesn't want to do that. She doesn't want to miss out on her daughter's cheerleading competitions. She doesn't want to miss out on being able to do those things because she's having to work on the weekends. And so she's wanting that time freedom, and she's wanting to be able to spend time with her kids at this great age where they're playing football and cheerleading and doing all these activities. And she's realized that the tools, the vehicles that she's using is not going to get her there. But her why, as you said, is huge. And so it's she's now said, wow, this has to change.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. And so here's you said something there that I really sort of believe is where this magic is to sort of recognizing this. You said the business is simple but not easy. So what does that mean? It doesn't mean that it's like climbing Mount Everest. Okay, that's not what Alan is saying, or I'm saying, or anybody that's sort of a veteran in this industry that says that. What we're saying is really three things, and maybe somebody else might call it five, but here's the three things that I think. One is, for the vast majority of people, when they get involved, this process isn't obvious to them. A regular, we'll just call it regular, sort of 9 to 5 type of work environment, we already know that because we've been around it our whole life. And so we understand these processes of, you can take a job and get paid a wage per hour, and you drive to a certain place and you punch in, or you go there for a period of time. And these things are really obvious and clear to us, and the world around us recognizes that. And so when you're making that sacrifice to go make that traditional work happen, no one ever asks any questions about it, right? Because they're familiar with it. And you understand that over time, with experience, you'll probably be paid more of a wage. And if you get an education, that'll probably increase that wage too. But we do understand its finite limitations. Even if we don't acknowledge it, we look at how people retire in the traditional workplace, and it's oftentimes not pretty, right? So that's one reason people are motivated here. Here, you're having to create the process out of your life, and in most cases on a limited schedule. And so it's a new set of muscles to build and flex. And all of a sudden, you've got to be taking some time from the least productive part of your day that may have normally been spent, I don't know, watching TV on the couch, whatever it happens to be, right? Whatever that happened to be. It could be even something more complicated than that. But you've got to go then repurpose that, and you're reshaping it. So you're developing this new process. And so that's entirely doable, but it requires something, right? And so that's why knowing what you want, understanding how important to you it is really crucial, right? The second part that makes it simple but not easy is that for a lot of people, they're unaccustomed to something requiring a lot of effort up front, where the reward isn't completely obvious, the pay scale isn't completely obvious, the payoff's sort of in the back end, right? Think of how artists perform, right? They go spend decades or years or whatever it happens to be developing some piece of art, literature, song. They toil in obscurity for 10, 15, 20 years, produce something the world loves, clamors for, and all of a sudden they're famous. So they put all the work in up front, right? And then the back end payoff came. Our business has a quality of that nature, different for everybody. It's almost like, I hear this analogy used and I love it, how all the bulk of the fuel for the space shuttle is utilized in the first 30 seconds to create the initial inertia of this multi-tonned vehicle to get off the ground and start. And then after that, more easily to keep it going, less fuel is required. And so here, I believe you're underpaid, overworked in the beginning, and on the back end, I could argue there's quite a few people that are overpaid and underworked, right? So that's kind of the nature of the payoff, right? That's the right that I recognize and applaud. And then, sort of the final thing is that doesn't make it easy is this often for someone takes them out of their comfort zone.
Yes.
And what I say to me, that has a very simple remedy. you look in your heart and you look at your motivations and you look at the value offered to people's lives that are having success with the products of the business, and you recognize, hey, I'm offering something to someone that could change their life. They may not recognize it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? That's okay. It's my attitude about that matters really completely, right? It matters how I go into the conversation and say, because otherwise I might perceive it as rejection, just when in fact it just wasn't something somebody wanted. I've heard you say lots of times, it's like somebody walking around offering coffee, decaf, calf, decaf, calf. Somebody doesn't want decaf or calf. The server doesn't go back and cry, right? That isn't what occurred here, right? And so it's those three principles right there. If you can get a handle on them, you can overcome this thing where it seems hard to you, but it can find a comfort place of simple, because it's just a process you're going to engage in because you know what you want the outcome to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like you said, it's, people are used to trading time for dollars. And what that means is they're paid by the hour. And if you say, and people in today's world think that $35 or $40 an hour is a great wage. But if you said, is that all you're worth as a person, as a human being? Is that what you're really worth? Is only $35 for an hour of labor? And of course, that depends on the intensity of the labor, But you're right. I mean, if we looked back, when I first started working with Touchstone and building with Touchstone, is how much if I looked at that, how much I got paid by the hour, it was very little.
It wasn't great, right?
No. But today, if we break down and look at how much I get paid by the hour, it's a massive difference. And so and when you understand that, as you said, and a lot of people don't, once you understand it and you understand what true residual income is and how it truly works, and I invite you to do some research on that, you won't be able to sleep at night, understanding what the opportunity is for you and your family.
If it makes you feel any better, I didn't take any kind of salary or compensation for the first 4 years of Touchstone. So if that makes you feel any better, and that's because you have you have something more important in your mind, and you make those sacrifices.
Well, every person that comes on board, and I didn't mean to make it sound like that I wasn't appreciative.
Oh no, I didn't take it.
Yeah, I knew going in, and that's what people need to understand going in. When you go in, you say, I'm counting on the future. A statistic that I saw that I brought up before was interesting. It said that when they talk about the success in this industry, 10% of people are successful. Well, maybe as a whole, but what happens is people get frustrated and quit or leave and don't do anything because they don't understand what they're doing. But the statistic that I saw was interesting because it said that close to 90% of people who are with the same direct sales company for 10 years or longer earn 6 figures or more.
Oh.
Now where can you go?
I completely believe that. Yeah.
Where can you go in a job that's going to provide you with a 6-figure income if you invest 10 years? Because most of the time it's work 20, 30, 40 years and retire on 40% of what you couldn't live on to begin with.
Right. Yeah. And the one thing I tell people here, you don't confuse this with wages.
Right.
Because here it becomes an income generating asset, right? The only thing that rivals that is money you have in some type of capital investment that can generate income passively for you on a monthly or a yearly basis. In today's world, considering the risk, you're talking about millions of dollars stuffed away somewhere to generate, that 6 figures on a day in and day out basis with any level of security. It's probably minimally a couple $1 million, right? That's the majority of people won't do that in a lifetime.
Well, they won't. And I was talking to a friend of mine before Christmas about the business and the opportunity and coming over. And he was in the financial planning business. And he said the biggest problem that we have in financial planning in today's world is people are outliving their retirement. And there's nothing that we can provide them that will subsidize that. They're going to run out of money. And he said, but the direct sales industry, you don't run out of money because it's residual and it continues to grow and continues to get better.
Yeah.
And So as we talk about that, and every goal is different for everybody else. I love the way you said break it down into 1, 3, 5. You know, talk a little bit about, one of the things that I think here is when you talk about the SMART goals is one, income producing, the activities is in being able to measure those. We have tools in place. We have tools in place where you can measure your activity that give you, number one, our rapid rewards growth system gives you a specific system to follow. And one of the things I like about it is it talks about a simple measuring system. And you may say, well, this is pretty simple, but it talks about 2 a day and 10 in play. And so if you're brand new here today and with Touchstone, and I can just tell you from working with other companies and knowing a lot of people out there in the industry and talking to them, there's nobody out there that has the systems and tools that Touchstone has put together to guide you on that path towards reaching your goals. And so I'd like for you to kind of talk a little bit about that, if you would.
Yeah, I will. And I want to make sure that you take credit along with a lot of the leadership on the team on the creation of these tools. We don't create them in a vacuum. And Alan and other leaders have been instrumental working with Craig and the team to create the systems that we have. So you've got a set of goals, right? You know what you want to do. And now it's important to backfill what are the activities that lead me there, correct? And so now you want to apply some tactics. And the advantage we have here is that there's so much experience on the team, both internally and externally, that we're able to say, what we know is that if you got 2 contacts a day rolling and you're faithful to that strategy, 2 contacts a day, it's going to create the 10 that is sort of in the cycle, somewhere in the cycle. What's the cycle? The cycle is the system, the rapid rewards growth system that Alan's describing. So you could really say that early on, without having to know a whole lot about anything else, you could really break down what you're needing to do is that with the time you repurpose to do this on a daily basis, you're working to make a couple of contacts, and you're going to be able to look at that system and know what to do with those contacts. Where are they at in this stage of discovery? Because that's all this is. The stage of discovery they have about our business or our products or whatever way that you've approached this, because it's always important when you contact someone that you know ahead of time what you're going to say. Otherwise, you always say too much, right? Rule of thumb, pro tip, if I go into the conversation and I haven't sort of reversed in my head or rehearsed in my head exactly what I'm going to do, then you're going to say too much. And the person listening to you may be courteous about it, but they're going to say, what are they talking about? I don't quite understand. This is sort of this endless loop. And when you don't know what you're going to say, or you don't have a plan, you tend to blather, right? It's sort of aimless, right? And so tactically speaking, I'm going to try to make 2 contacts a day, sort of no matter what. I want to have a good idea what I'm going to say, and I'm going to know what's next.
Yes.
And that system, if you don't mind pulling it back up again, Alan, that system gives you step by step, right? It's the initial contact. We call it the invite. It's the share. What am I going to share? All of those details are explained to you on the right side. Left side is the diagram. Then I'm going to follow up. So you don't have to guess what's next. You know tactically where you're going. So these 2 contacts a day that evolve into 10 in play. And guess what? You might become so good at this that your 2 contacts a day are creating 15 or 20 in play, right? Celebration. That's perfect, right? But your job is to know ahead of time what you're trying to accomplish and know the next step. You do those things. You develop that mastery. You're going to have the success you're looking for.
Yeah. And and that's so true. And then, I think it's important too, when you're talking about accountability partners, and this next page, the back page, it's a 2-sided 1-page document here, but it talks about a cadence of event, which kind of puts you in a place to where you're staying plugged in, and I heard that when I first started in this business years ago, and I said, it's so important to stay plugged in. And part of the reason is, and I want you to kind of elaborate on this, is because the people that you surround yourself with are going to be your biggest influencers. And if you take yourself away from it and you're not plugged into the events that we have, the tools that we have, and we call it a cadence of event, but it's pretty simple. And if you do it, then your team will do what you do, not what you say, and then it'll create replication, and we can grow from there. Don't you? How do you feel?
Well, you know what? People that I'm around very much, they hear me say these things, but I'm going to say them again. There's two, I've got 30 plus years here, right? So there's a couple things that I just know they're true. The business rewards people that find and make happen consistency.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is you're in some kind of exercise. To me, it has to be on a daily basis. People may say, well, I'm going to be engaged in it 2 days a week. I'm as a person, I can't do that. Right. My mind races and my world around me is chaotic enough that I need to have a routine that finds a way to have some level of repeating itself on a daily basis. That doesn't mean I don't take some downtime, and it doesn't mean it's what dominates every moment of my weekend or whatever it happens to be. But I've got to know from a tactical standpoint how I manage myself and how I build a habit. And that's what talking to new people, following up with people for me had to become, or I wouldn't have been able to be successful, was to build that habit. I had to have routine. I had to be consistent, because that's what the business rewards. If you're inconsistent, the business is punitive.
Yeah.
Here's what that means, right? This is the part I harp on quite a bit. You've got to recognize that ours is a volunteer army, just across the board.
Mm-hmm.
At 1995 for admission, man, people can join and quit in the same motion. It's just not enough, right? Maybe if they bought $1 million franchise, right, you don't get that kind of reaction. Right. And so this is literally, even though there's a modest fee associated, it's a volunteer army. And volunteers are led by two principal things. Now, this is different than a person that's employed, right, that has the threat of security, of financial security, or the threat of some type of organization that may be heavy-handed, right? So when you're dealing with volunteers, I show up because I choose to. I choose to because I admire an example, or I want to follow an example because of what it might mean in my life. So I'm either look at someone's example and say, I really love what they're doing, or I love what they've become, and I want to become the same. Or I look at what they've accomplished and say, I really would like to accomplish the same. That doesn't mean I'm inappropriately admiring their accomplishment or I'm jealous of it. It means it's just an example of me, of what can take place. Or there's a cause that really motivates you. There are people that we work with that the products have had such a positive impact on them. They're evangelical in how they talk to people about the products. That might not always work, right? You can be a little too fervent about the product and it kind of scares people a little bit. But I'd rather have that occurring, than no passion at all. Right. And so knowing that this is a volunteer organization that's led by example and cause, if you're not showing up, this organization, this team you're wishing to develop will do exactly the same. And all of a sudden the room is empty. I can't remember what sort of popcorn movie it was several years ago, excuse me, but a school allowed people to begin to put tape recorders in a classroom and tape lectures. Next thing you know, it's just the tape recorders. Next thing you know, the professor's on a tape projecting, the room's full of tape recorders. Nobody's there because all of a sudden that became the example.
Yeah.
Here, you want your team engaged, you want your team doing things, you have to do them. That's part of what success means.
Absolutely. Amen. Yeah. Yeah. And that includes, and here's some of the things that we have, some that we have coming up, obviously, and part of the cadence of event and part of the tools is, when you look at the events, and people misunderstand that what we're doing right now is an event. We're doing a training, and it's a weekly training on Wednesday night. And so many times I've had, a lot of people, and I've had a little people, but every Wednesday night I make a commitment to be here. And it's amazing because I'll have somebody call me the next day and go, "You said something last night that made me think and made me do." And so we have such a robust, outstanding array of tools, and it's I think it obviously with your 30 years plus experience in the industry and putting all this together, but touch base on some of these as well, because with the Verb app, the gift certificates and the rapid rewards obviously is a system that we use to build, but then there's these other things that are just as important.
Yeah. Let me say something real quickly about what you just described, where a person reaches out to you and talks about something you said the night before. I want everybody here to work long enough and hard enough to become a part of somebody's testimonial. There's very few things more rewarding than to have somebody share something you did, some work you did, even if it was unintentional, that became a part of their success story or their reason for success. It's a feeling. I know how it makes you feel. I know how it makes me feel. I want everybody here to have that. I want you to do the work necessary to cause that to occur. About events, I'm a big believer. I try to say this every time I'm given an opportunity, that it's an event-driven business. And what I mean by that is, we've been talking about tactics, 2 a day, 10 in play. That's a strategy. That's a tactical approach to the exercise. Events are the same. And so the way I was taught to do this and the way I think today, and it plays a role in how we have developed the company. So the company drives itself off of events. It was not, haphazard or an accident that we had the series of promotions we had at the end of the year, or how we started the new year, or our vision summit that's coming up here towards the end of the month, or the Akamal event coming up in March. This is the last month plug meant for that, to go out there and work and get yourself on that trip, or the product release schedule that we have, or the winter tour that you've helped to spearhead and create. All of these things are a part of a mosaic, right, that we've created, that is a series of events that drive the excuse me. I apologize. We have had some painting and sanding work done on sheetrock around the house today, and I have to say it's gotten a little bit of the better of me. But it's a part of how you drive yourself. It's trying to develop for everybody here a event-based roadmap. And so, Alan, when you had that board up, if you'll pull it back up just one more second there, these are all of the ways that you can create events. And so the Verb app, right? The Verb app is an opportunity for you to create events without even having to think about it, because if you've sent somebody information, such as something about the Pure Body Extra offer, there's a series of emails that follow your initial offering, my goodness, that become a part of that explanation or a series of events to help close things out. Even when a gift card is given, right, there's a series of emails to create a sense of urgency. They're a part of an event cycle. So the same thing all around, whether it's the wellness summits that we do in the fall, the vision summits that come up at the first of the year, or Akamal. So it's an event-driven business, and you've got an environment that makes that, we hope, obvious for you to plug into.
Yeah. And I know you're kind of catch your breath there, but there you go. Drink of water. So talking about Akamal, and I've had some conversations. We were talking about that today. I'd like for you just to kind of let everybody know and ensure everybody about the event and the safety and kind of an overview of where we are with that.
Yeah. So I'm super mindful of what's taking place with Omicron and all just the disruptions and concerns. And I share those concerns, right? When you see the positive tests that are taking place and all these kinds of things, I am heartened by the fact that it looks like hospitalizations are not spiking in the same manner as which people with positive tests are. So we're conscious that the pandemic is there. However, life has to go on, we believe. So individuals need to make their own personal choices about how they do these things, but we've worked hard to make sure we're going into a location that's prepared for sort of every eventuality. Number one, in contact with the State Department of the United States State Department, understanding what we know now about what's happening in Mexico. There's not going to be a limitation on travel. In fact, to go to Mexico, there's no requirement, vaccine, no vaccine, positive test, no positive test. There's no requirement, no requirements that are coming. There is a requirement coming back to the States to have a negative test. We're going to a resort more than an hour south of Cancun, frankly, in the jungle, rainforest, with a magnificent turtle preserve right off the waters in front of the resort, where you can see about 30 feet into the water these beautiful turtles, and it's just it's a wonderful place. But it's remote and isolated from the general population in the area. Testing for return is done on the resort, and it's free. And should someone have a positive test, and this is not to encourage you to try to go there and get COVID, you can stay at the resort for free, which I'm just encouraging people. It's not designed for you to extend your stay, but that's what would essentially happen. Now, we recognize people have all types of dynamics they're trying to weigh out, but this is a wonderful, quiet, safe area, and we've checked and worked as hard as we could to make sure all eventualities are considered. We've gone to this place before, and so we feel very comfortable, and I'm taking all my family and staff and doing these things with a great deal of comfort.
Yeah. And I hope that makes people feel better, because, you know, everybody's a little bit on edge, and just to know that that everything we do here and everything that you do, and when just knowing, hey, I'm taking my family, and knowing that you not only wouldn't put your family in jeopardy, but wouldn't put any of our team members in jeopardy for any reason whatsoever. It's because we canceled the event, if I remember, last year.
Yeah, that's right. So we've gone down that path, right? So we're, as a company, we worked very hard to be sensitive to these things, but we also realize there are a lot of people out there that are ready to work through this.
Yes,
they've dealt with their concerns, and they're ready to continue on in life. And part of our work is to provide them a pathway for success, and that's what we're doing, and we're going to continue to do it. So I can't imagine a circumstance that would slow us down. We're moving ahead.
Yeah. I'm excited about it. Well, Eddie, I want to thank you for joining me. And
thank you,
here's
Alan.
kind of the overview that we talked about, and I'm going to put that out onto the team pages, and they can see it on the YouTube channel as well. You know, the SMART goals we talked about, specific, putting the systems in place so that you can measure. M is for measuring your progress as you go along. A is for accountability and having an accountability partner. R is you've got to be, relevant to what your goal is. If you're planning on building a house, you don't want to go over there and start working on a boat and putting together a sail, because that's not going to be relevant to your house. And then the tools that we have, the tools go along with that, and we've got amazing tools for everybody to use. So I want to thank you for coming on tonight and sharing with us. And what an amazing year we've had, and it's going to be an even bigger year in 2022, and we're excited about it.
Oh, we couldn't be more excited and proud of the work everybody's doing. I see so many names over here on the right side, and I know what they've accomplished and been doing. I'm so proud and appreciate the association. And Alan, thank you for all you've been doing, my friend. It's going to be a great year, right? Another great year.
Another record year. Yep. Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it. Eddie, thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Everybody have a blessed night.
See you on the road.
Yes, sir.